There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so lovely to have you here. It's so brilliant already to see so many friendly names and friendly faces in the chat already. I'm loving this comment from Pete, who's saying he's finding that intro a lot more bearable at 2 o'clock than 8:30 in the morning. So good for you, Pete. I'm glad that we can be more bearable for you. It's so lovely to see these chat messages coming in. Please do keep them coming in right now and throughout the duration of today's session. In fact, I should speak about that a little bit more because as ever, there are two challenges for everyone in attendance today. First challenge, it may be seven, but these things do not change. Please do keep that chat feature running and chatting and being positively lovely and listening to one another throughout the duration of today's session. As ever, Mary and I will be doing our absolute best to make you smile, to give you information that you need. But the second part of this is all about all of you, whether it's you highlighting a point that resonated or whatever it may be. The experience of the marketing meetup is very much about the community, and the community gets really highlighted in that chat feature. So please do make the best use of it throughout the duration. I'd love to see where you're tuning in from, as a lot of people already have. Secondly, do drop on social media after today's session your biggest takeaway. And the reason why I asked for that is threefold, really. The first is all about conversation afterwards. So the opportunity for every one of you to meet and chat and learn from one another and sort of share knowledge. Some of you may have taken different things from today's session than the others. So to have that opportunity on social afterwards is really important. And then the second, I lied, there's only two, is it's also how we grow the community. It's how we find more lovely people like all of you on the chat here today. This community grows through word of mouth and social media. So if you do share, it's doing us a huge favor in return for these free events. If those two challenges are lodged in your mind, all about keeping that chat feature buzzing, which is amazing. I can see Tyrone in South Africa. We've got people in Essex. I think we might Chorley Cake. I don't want to know what's going on there. Then please do keep that chat feature going, and please do share on social media. If that's good, let's go on with today's introduction of today's guest, who is one of my favorite people of all time. It is the most wonderful Mary Owusu. Mary is the founder of SEOsprints.com, where businesses can learn to accelerate their traffic and boost their leads using SEO sprints. Mary's SEO sprint system shrinks the time it takes you to leap your website to the top of Google by exposing and capitalizing on your website's unique pressure points. You may ask how, and this is where the sprint comes into things. Mary's sprints create an instant SEO scorecard for your website and then map these scores to your roadmap and checklist so you can finally get about outranking your competition. If you or your team are feeling overwhelmed by SEO or underwhelmed with your results, then I suggest Mary is a very lovely place to start. On a personal level, let me just say that Mary is warm, kind, articulate, blessed with clarity, and just, as I say, one of my most favorite human beings. I know you'll feel the same after today's session. I'm very nearly done. Today's featured sponsor, before we get going, is Impression. Impression are fabulous if you are looking for anyone to help you level up your digital marketing on a holistic level. You've got help with analytics, as we're speaking about today, but also PPC, SEO, a whole bevy of experiences and services. Impression are noted as one of the UK's most leading agencies, not only as for their performance, but also to work for. They've got offices in Nottingham and London, and honestly, they're just so lovely. Well worth checking out Impression too. Last thing for me to say is that we also, this session will run as a presentation and then a Q&A. So that means to say that we have a presentation element and then a Q&A. So do get your questions in to the Q&A feature, which is found down below. The way you do that is you wiggle your mouse and you'll see the question and answer feature, and get your questions in nice and early so Mary and I can help you too. With all that said, I'm now going to pass over to the very lovely, very amazing, very knowledgeable Mary Owusu. Thank you so much for being here.
Joe, it's my pleasure to be here. And hi, everybody. It's so good to be back. I love spending time with you all. And as Joe said, if you have questions, please throw them in the chat. You do not have to wait till the end. Joe, please feel free to interrupt me at any point if somebody has questions that are relevant to what I'm talking about, but maybe I didn't see it. So I would really appreciate that.
No problem. I'm on it.
All right. Well, we're talking about everything GA4 today. And you guys know me by now. I like for you to be able to be here with me and pay attention and not be busy taking copious notes as I go through everything. So of course, I have a link for you right down there on the bottom of the screen that I am sharing. You can see get this presentation plus access to my free GA4 toolbox at go.seosprints.com/TMM. So please save that link. If you didn't catch it, I repeat it on just about every slide. So I'm going to make sure that you have access to it as we go along. All right, so that's how you can follow along with the presentation. You'll see the same slides that I'm showing here are available at that link. It's also listed down below here for you. All right, so there's a lot to cover today. I've always loved the field of analytics ever since I started my career in digital marketing. My career started with search marketing, and that is why SEO is the business that I run and it's the passion that I have. But analytics is an inevitable and it's just a part of digital marketing that you can never separate from any type of digital marketing, SEO included. And so from early on in my career, I've always been a huge proponent of analytics and measurement. And you can't just get a website to be number one on Google without immediately asking the question, what does that mean for the business? How did we get more goals, more conversions as a result of that number one ranking? So analytics always been a part of my story. And so when Google Analytics announced that it was changing after 9 years of running the current version to GA4, my ears perked up just probably as much as yours. So what I want to make sure that we talk about today is the what's and the whys and the hows of GA4. So you walk out of here with real clarity about what you should do now, what you should do next week, what you should do later. Let's put some priorities in place and also some real action items. And I'm hoping that we can get through that today. So the what, this is our agenda. This is the what. We're going to start with the what. What is Google Analytics 4? It's also called GA4. What is it exactly? Why should I care? When and how? Here we'll talk about what do I have to do now and what can I wait on? What can I wait to do later? Also, how do I know that I'm doing those things correctly? And then after we go through those first 3 points, if you still have questions, I want to hear them. So definitely drop them in the chat as we go along. All right, let's get started with what is GA4 exactly? All right, so Google Analytics 4 is, well, before we talk about Google Analytics 4, let's talk about what Google Analytics is, okay? We are all probably familiar, but it's important to mention that GA or Google Analytics is the most popular software that businesses and marketers use to understand how people use their websites. You all are probably familiar with GA. Matter of fact, 85% plus of all of us use GA4 or Google Analytics rather on our websites. And you're probably one of them, as I said. And why do we default to Google Analytics? Because it's free, it's highly robust, it plays really well with other marketing tools as well. And did I mention it's free? Okay, so it's a great free tool and we're all very lucky that Google has it available for us to use without any payment of any kind at this point. And so when Google Analytics 4 was announced, it was really important for us to understand what is it? How is it different? Well, Google Analytics 4 is the latest version of Google Analytics, which has been around for many, many years. Since it's the 4th version of Google Analytics, it's called Google Analytics 4. It's really as simple as that. The current version of Google Analytics that you're probably running on your website, if you are a Google Analytics user, was introduced back in 2012. It's called Google Analytics Universal. It's also called Universal Analytics. For ease, today we are going to call it GA3. because I think it'll just make it easier for us to talk today. So GA3 is the current version that we all run. It's been around since 2012. And let me tell you, life was different in 2012. Here are some important marketing stuffs that happened around 2011, 2012, when Google Analytics 3 was introduced. That was the year that Facebook went IPO. That's the year everybody said MySpace died and Facebook took over. That was 2011, 2012 timeframe. It's been a while. It's also the year that Google Plus was launched. If any of you remember, Google Plus was supposed to be Google's answer to Facebook. It was going to be the biggest social network out there, and it has since died. But 2012 is when that tool was introduced by Google and launched. Netflix was also founded around that time. And 4G was the big thing. Everybody was talking about how 4G is the big new way of communications. And as you all know, we are now in 5G mode and 4G is long forgotten. The other thing that I have on the screen here is the screenshot here, which says that early in 2012, Facebook and Twitter were lambasted by marketers for not providing them with enough detail to accurately measure the ROI of their campaigns. We were very data focused. We wanted more data from these platforms. We were all about, give me as many segmentations as possible so I can really market to this person who lives in this place and has these needs. We were very data centric and very much about acquiring as much user data as we could. Very different from where we find ourselves today, right? Where we are sort of on the opposite side of things. We are a bit more focused on this cookie-less world now. The whole pendulum has shifted and people don't want to share their data. People are very attuned and very focused on privacy and, my data is my data. And I'm sure you know this, you're living this in the UK. You're living this in Europe more so than I am in the US. So you're very aware of this. You're hyper-focused on this. The pendulum has completely shifted. And really the world of data, the world of marketing has changed. And what Google recognized was that its platform was not up to date with the current needs of society and of marketing as a whole. Google actually released GA4 in 2019, 2020. It was released 2.5 years ago. Even though it might feel like it's just now released, it was released 2.5 years ago. There are businesses that have been running GA4 for 2 to 2.5 years now. And when Google was introducing GA4 back then and even up to now, the focus was, how do we maintain compliance? How do we play in this new world where data is not going to be as available for collection? Also, the way that we interact with mobile devices, think about Netflix was just invented back in 2012, was just introduced back in 2012. And think about how easy it is for us to move from Netflix on our phones to Netflix on the TV, to Netflix on the tablet, to watching Netflix at a friend's house by logging into our same account, but still being the same person moving seamlessly between devices. That has changed. Google Analytics 3 was built in such a way that if you wanted to track a user on a website, you had to use a different set of code, a different tracking system than if you were tracking that same person on a mobile app. If you had to use a mobile app analysis or reporting, you were using Google Analytics for Firebase. It was a completely different tagging system. And I'm sure most of you are more familiar with regular Google Analytics than Google Analytics Firebase, because that was mainly for apps. So Google said, forget Firebase, forget for websites. We're going to bring all those two things together and create GA4, which can be used to track any type of device, whether it's an Apple device, whether it's an Android device, but also whether it's an Apple application, an Android app, an Apple App Store app, or a website. It doesn't matter. Now everything can be tracked through one single interface. So you as a business can understand how your entire product suite is functioning. Some people even say Google Analytics 4 is a product analytics tool and not necessarily just a marketing analytics tool. Some people have coined it a product analytics tool because it can truly tell you about all your products, your website, your apps, your mobile site, all of it is all measurable in a much more succinct way. So that's another way that GA4 is fundamentally different from GA3. GA4 is also predictive analytics focused. So GA4 will look at your data and what's happening and actually make suggestions to you about things you should do differently. It can even anticipate future growth for you and help you make decisions about how to spend money better and more wisely as a marketer. For example, if you're seeing a lot of traffic and a lot of conversions from a particular channel, GA4 will tell you that if that pattern increases or if that pattern continues, that you can expect X more conversions next week, as an example. So those kinds of predictions are built into GA4 that were not in GA3. And the final point on the slide is that GA4 is built from the ground up. It truly is from scratch, developed from zero. GA1, 2, and 3 were all built from the same code base. So once the world changed so much, GA4 was a completely, Google realized it could not continue to just layer on from the base that it had used to build GA3. So it's a completely different system altogether. The mindset and the approach are entirely different from just a pure coding perspective. So what does all this mean? To be really blunt and be really direct, GA4 is a complete learning curve to GA3. And for those of you that have already set it up, we've already got GA4 running, which I'm going to assume is some of you, because I asked Joe, I was going to use Joe's website as an example live so we could all watch how GA4 is set up, but he was already leading the pack. He's already got it set up, so I couldn't use him. So I said, you already have it set up? He said, yes, I do. And I'm sure some of you have it set up as well. And you can probably attest to the fact that it is a completely different interface, a learning curve, to be direct. So it's going to take some time for all of us marketers to get used to how to pull the same types of reports that we were getting in GA3 from GA4. And I'm hoping by the end of today that you're feeling more and more comfortable with how to do that. Okay, I'm gonna take a short pause. Any questions so far, Joe?
There's quite a lot of questions, but they're quite specific and not necessarily to the points that you've raised so far. So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'll suggest that we carry on because you might end up covering some of them and we can get into the specifics later if that's okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
That works for me.
Cool.
Okay. So now that we've just talked about what is GA4 exactly, the question now is why? Great, Google, you made changes. Why should I care? Why should we care about GA4? The short answer is, damn it, Google, because Google is making us care, okay? Google is making us care because it is deprecating GA3. GA3, as I said, or GA4 rather, as I said, came out 2.5 years ago. And tell me if you agree that you didn't pay it much attention. You figured, Google is developing something. I'm just going to continue using GA3. I don't really need to change anything yet. That was probably most of our mindsets. But then back in March of 2022, just a couple of months ago, Google put out a blog post and said, here are some excerpts from the blog post. 2.5 years ago, we introduced Google Analytics 4. All standard universal analytics properties, universal analytics being GA3, will stop processing new hits, AKA new information, on July 1st, 2023. So about a year from now, GA3 will stop processing new information, meaning on July 1st, when you open up GA3, there'll be no information showing up in that particular property at all anymore. That's the first point. Here's the second point that a lot of people didn't read because it was later on in the blog post. Google goes on to say in this post that after that date, you will be able to access your previously processed data in GA3 for at least 6 months. Did you catch that? Google is saying not only will we stop processing data on July 1st, 2023 for GA3, But the data that you already have, that you've accumulated these 9 years or however long you've been accumulating GA3 data, they are promising at least 6 months that you'll still have access to it. That opens the door that Google has the right and is likely, highly likely, to actually delete the GA3 data sometime in 2024. This is not speculative. This has been vetted by people that work at Google and that speak on behalf of Google, that Google is very highly likely to delete GA3 data. GA3 data does not comply with current privacy laws. GA3 data has, think about all the times that you served an email or you sent out an email blast and people fill out your form and the thank you page has their email address embedded in the thank you page URL because that's how your content management system for your website was configured. There are all sorts of private data inside Google Analytics that Google does not want anything to do with. So the likelihood that GA3 data will be purged sometime in 2024 is high. So this is a point that got missed by a lot of people, and I want to make sure that you know it's there in the same statement that is linked here. Okay, so here's the thing. Google has given us some deadlines, and I want you to know, if you're like me, you like to procrastinate until the deadline, until somebody gives you a deadline. And deadlines in this case may seem like they're very far away, but they are actually closer than they appear. Even though July is next year, here's why you should care about making changes now, okay? Do you value, right now, do you value comparing month over month data? Do you do that today? Do you like to look at this month versus last month? So for example, come July 2023, if you wanted to compare July of 2023, how that month performed to June of 2023, you would be one of the people that falls in the bucket of people that compare month over month data. If you were to try to do that, you would be comparing oranges and apples, apples to oranges. You wouldn't be comparing like items if you didn't set up GA4 before July 2023. And the reason why there would be apples to oranges is because there are mismatched metrics in GA3 and GA4. For example, sessions. You are all familiar with sessions. That's the number of visits a website gets. GA4 measures sessions differently from GA3. It's very likely that sessions numbers are lower in GA4 than they are in GA3, simply because of how Google Analytics 4 collects GA4 data. For example, with Google Analytics 4, listen to this, you won't believe this. In GA4, if somebody is on your website and that person is on your website at 11:59 p.m. and they continue to be on your website until 12:05 a.m. the next day, GA4 will recognize that that is the same session. GA3 counts those as two separate sessions. So GA3 data is inflated currently, whereas GA4 would not allow for that. GA4 would recognize that that is the same individual. So imagine that you always report on sessions every day when you go to do your month over month comparisons. Your numbers will immediately be lower for GA4 than they are for GA3 without that knowledge of tracking it month over month to really see what the trend looked like from now until then. Also, there's a lack of comparable, let me not forget bounce rate. Bounce rate is a metric that currently does not exist in GA4. Rumor has it it's going to be reintroduced, but right now it doesn't exist. So if your current reports look at GA3 bounce rates and you want to make sure you report on that, that is currently not in GA4. So you wouldn't be able to measure that month over month. Also, GA4 does not track goals the same way as GA3. So if you were to compare month over month, if you waited and didn't turn on GA4 right now, and you come next year, you want to compare June to July, you wouldn't be able to look at your goals in GA4. They simply wouldn't exist. If you set up GA4 in July next year, your goals just wouldn't exist. So you wouldn't be able to say, we had this many more conversions than last month, wouldn't exist. So you got to set it up now. There are other costs besides just the lack of understanding of the data and the lack of the metrics. There's also the cost of rushing to get this done. We've all been there as marketers where you decided not to do something and now you really have to do it. Now you're paying the highest price for a consultant, or you're putting a lot of man or women hours behind this project when you've got other deliverables to do, right? So the implementation rush and the cost of that to the business is a real tangible cost. The cost of time to learn. So now you didn't take time to learn over these months. You didn't set up GA4 now, you waited. And now reports are due and you're working on things and you literally do not understand what you're looking for or you're looking at because you didn't spend the time really understanding it. And then the cost of not impacting the business decisions. In other words, because you weren't prepared, because you don't understand the data, you can't be influencing business decisions on an ongoing basis, right? Today, if I know how my Google Analytics is performing and I can understand my traffic channels, I can make some decisions. We're all used to making decisions based on GA data. But if you don't set it up right away and have the data to work with, every month that you don't have the GA4's rich reports, the predictive analytics, the custom reports, the things that are built into data help you make better decisions. Every day you're losing out on the opportunity that you could have had to make better decisions. So if you're somebody that likes to compare things month over month, this is what you stand to lose if you don't set up GA4 before July 2023. The same list applies if you're someone who likes to compare data year over year. If you want to look at 2023 year compared to 2022, same thing, same list of things. You're in the same boat where you cannot compare things apples to apples. You're comparing oranges and apples simply because you didn't set things up early enough. And also, if you're someone who likes to compare things over multiple years, we've all seen how the pandemic has changed things. So maybe you want to look at 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022 and beyond and really see how, before the pandemic, how were my metrics performing, and then compare it to post-pandemic. So you like to look at multiple years. The same list applies. So no matter what type of reporting you do, even if you do ad hoc reporting where you just log in once in a while and you just kind of pick things, honestly, the data would not exist. And what does exist will be hard to compare. Your only solution, regardless of your reporting process and your reporting cadence, is to set up GA4 now. And I mean now, when I say now, I mean yesterday. Set it up as soon as possible. And also turn on the free BigQuery integration. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that as we're talking today. Because BigQuery allows you, Google Analytics 4 rather, includes BigQuery integration for free. And it allows you to essentially push all your data that you're collecting into a data warehouse where it lives, where you can go and manipulate it and then display it into Google Data Studio, or if you use another visualization tool, you can use that as well. But essentially, it's a storage place for all your raw data to live, and you can push GA3 data in there as well, so that you don't actually lose it when it gets deprecated come July 2023 or beyond. Okay, so the why you should care, I hope has made sense to you. And again, any questions, Joe, you just stop me. Otherwise, I'll keep going.
Keep going. The last
All right.
says, Mary, you're just wonderful. These tips are amazing, and we're only a few slides in, so thank you. So I think that's encouragement to continue.
Awesome. Okay, now what do you have to do now? Okay, now we know Google is making us care. Damn you, Google, you're making us care about this. You're a free product, but you're such a good product. We feel we have to go this route. And by the way, if you're someone who's thinking, is this a time to start looking at alternatives to Google Analytics? There are some alternatives out there, but none are as robust as GA4. There just isn't. And the ones that are equally robust do not play well with a lot of those other tools that you might be using that might be a part of Google's ecosystem. So you might go and sign up an account with Motomo, or you might sign up an account with Adobe Analytics, or you might sign up an account with Piwik. These are other competitors out there that you could be using, but they don't integrate with a click to Google Ads or to Google Data Studio or to other Google tools that you might want to use to display your data or to measure your advertising. So truly, for its robustness and for its integration, GA4 leads the pack right now. And there's just no question about it. I've done the research, and I just want you to know that is what we're up against. So what do you do now? What do you do now versus later? Okay, that's what we're getting into now. What do I have to do now, and what can wait? And how do I know I'm doing them correctly? All right, so here's what you should do now. I have 4 things, A, B, C, and D. Okay, A, these are things I want you to do right now. I wish I could take a poll right now and ask how many people on this call right now do not have GA4 enabled, can you just say no GA4 in the chat? I just want to see how many I see coming through. No GA4, no GA4, wow, no GA4. Most of us, or a lot of us, I don't know if it's most, but that's a lot of us. Thank you for being bold enough to share this. I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to do it today, okay? We're going to do it. And you'll see it takes 5 minutes or less. It's actually really quick and easy to set up GA4. It's the next steps that get a little bit more complicated, but the easy stuff, let's get the easy stuff out of the way, okay? Awesome, 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 awesome. Seeing your chats come through. Some, yay, yes, GA4, I have it, but I don't think it's tracking correctly. Excellent. Thank you for your participation. I love you all. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. If you fall in this camp where you do not have GA4 set up at all, then you need to configure GA4. Then you want to turn on something called enhanced measurement. What this is GA4 automatically tracks all page views, automatically tracks them. Also automatically tracks all scrolls. So you can see, do people scroll to 5% of my page, 50% of my page, 100% of my page? Tracks that for you automatically. That's the second thing. It tracks automatically all clicks to external websites. So you can pull a report that says how many people are clicking off my site to go to my portal, to go to my resource, my cited resources, whatever it is, it tracks it automatically. It also tracks searches inside your own site search box automatically. It tracks, if you have YouTube videos embedded on your site, it tracks those video plays and tells you how long people are playing those videos. So you can get a sense of engagement with your videos, automatic tracking. And it also tracks any file downloads, any PDFs you have on your site, any zip files, anything downloadable off your site. Google Analytics 4 immediately finds all of these 6 metrics. They're called enhanced measurement metrics, and it tracks them automatically. So we're going to turn that on. And then the last thing we're going to do together is turn on Google Signals if your company complies. This is the ability for you to automatically capture people's demographics and interests so that you can more accurately track them as they cross different devices. So I'll show you how to turn this on, but if you're not sure if you should turn it on for GDPR reasons, you should leave it off, even though I'm going to show you. You should leave it off until you can verify with your legal team that it's okay to turn it on. Okay, so, here's an example of what Google Signals looks like if you want to have a visual. So without Google Signals, if you go to the demographics report inside GA4, you'll see nothing. But with Google Signals turned on, you'll see the genders. Am I attracting one gender over another? What are the interests of my audience? And what are the age categorizations of my audience as well? That's the level of detail you get with Google Signals, okay? Let's walk through it together now. All right, so go to Google Analytics. Go there, I'm going there as well. We're all gonna meet in a second inside Google Analytics. Where's my GA screen? All right, here I am. This is my, bringing it over. This is live. Fingers crossed, we all do it right and we all get success. Okay, so when you log into your Google Analytics 3 account, your regular Google Analytics account, you're going to see at the bottom the word admin. Yes? You click admin. I'm looking to get any feedback that anybody has for me. Like if you don't see admin when you log in, whatever it is, I want to hear you. Okay, yes, great. Thank you. All right, so log in, you'll see admin. You'll see this, when you click admin, you'll get a screen like this. Quite literally, the quickest way to set up a GA4 account is to click create property. GA4 doesn't have views like GA3 had. You just click create property. And you're going to be able to give your property a name. You might actually see a button that says create GA4 property. That might be what you see, okay? So you're going to click that button if that's what it says, and then you're going to be able to name your GA4 property. So in my case, I already have it set up, but I'm just going to create another example, live GA4 sprints live example. Select your time frame or your time zone and hit next. Yes, GA4 setup assistant. Yes, if that's what you see, click on that. GA4 setup assistant, if that's what you see. All right, so I'm going to, for me, it's asking me to choose the size of my business and asking me to choose other things as well. Like, what do I want GA4 to help me measure? I can skip this. I'm just going to click create. All right, Jennifer, you see, based on your current tag setup, you need to install new tags on your on your site to use GA4. You are like 4 steps ahead, which is great. Which is great. My steps, I think, look a little bit different because I've already set up a property and I'm trying to set up a new one. So I think my steps are a little bit different. But if you click that Get Setup Assistant button, I think it immediately creates a GA4 account for you. And then it says you have to install a tag. Yes. All right. So let's see. What are you seeing on your screen right now? Somebody's seeing, I need to install more tags. Tell me what you're seeing. Tag installation, custom event measurement. I'm seeing the same as you. Okay, some people are seeing what I'm seeing. Others are seeing a couple other things. But is anybody seeing data streams? Do you see a section called data streams that looks like mine? If not, click on data streams. The way that GA4 works, yes, set up a data stream. Yay, excellent. We're all caught up. Okay, so the way that GA4 works is it says, well, what are you going to be tracking? A website or an app? Remember, it brings those things together. So of course, for us, we're going to choose website for now. And it's going to ask you, well, what website? So here you type in the website itself, SEOsprints.com. And you give your stream a name. So here you would just put SEO Sprints website as an example, okay? And do you see here where it says enhanced measurement and you see how it's already checked? This is what I was talking about. GA4 automatically tracks page views, scrolls, outbound links, et cetera, for you. So leave that on, do not uncheck that, okay? And then you click create stream. And you have created a stream. Basically what you've done is you've created an instance in Google Analytics 4 for Google Analytics 4 to start tracking, but there's only one small problem. There's no tag on your site. For those who are saying, oh, we have to add more tags. Yes, you do, because right now there's no communication between this account you've just created and your website. All you've done is told Google Analytics to create another reporting dashboard, but it doesn't know what it's tracking. You've got to put a piece of snippet code on your website. Here is where, let's see, anybody have questions? Let's see. Yes, data. So Philippa, you're saying data collection isn't active for your website if you installed tags more than 48. Yes, the same thing I'm seeing up here. It's not installed. So you're in the right place. If you're seeing information that says it's not installed, it's because it's not installed. We haven't done the installation yet. Okay, that's exactly where you should be. There are 2 ways to install Google Analytics 4 tracking code on your website. Okay. And Google Analytics tells you how to do them right here under tagging instructions. You don't need a special guru to tell you how to tag your site. Google Analytics tells you there are 2 ways. The first one is if you have never put any code on your website, any Google Analytics code or any Google Tag Manager code on your website, then you're operating under this one that says add new on-page tag. If, however, you have existing Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager tag on your website, then you're going to follow the instructions under this section. That's it. So for me, I'm going to walk you through the example for people that have Google Tag Manager set up, because that's what I have. But know that if you don't have Google Tag Manager set up, you would just click the Google Analytics option and Google tells you how to then paste the code directly into your site without going through Tag Manager. I know, Ray, GTM is immense. Google Tag Manager is immense. There's a lot inside Google Tag Manager, but it's also digestible if you just if you just go in and do what you need and get out. GA4 or Google Tag Manager is actually quite easy to use if you just focus on the simple things you need to do. Some people do very complicated things inside GA4, but I don't, and I think most of us shouldn't either. Okay, so when I go into GA4, I keep saying GA4 when I mean Tag Manager. When I go inside Tag Manager, again, I already have Tag Manager set up for me. So I am following use existing on-page tag, and I'm following these instructions. Literally, Google is telling me what to do. It says, go into your Tag Manager, click Tags and click New, then click Tag Configuration and select GA4 Configuration. So I'm just gonna go to Tags New, Tag Configuration, and select GA4 Configuration. Watch this. Tags, New, here's my new tag. I could have gone to Tags here and clicked New. I could have also just clicked the new tag on the previous screen, okay? So Google says, now click Tag Configuration and click GA4 Configuration. So I click into this tag configuration box and I click GA4 Configuration. So far, so good. Now it says, now enter this measurement ID. This is unique to me. This is my measurement ID up here, right here. So this is the measurement ID that Google Analytics has pasted down here for me. So it's saying, enter this inside this box, okay? And then it says, now set a trigger to all pages and then save and publish your tag. That's it. So I'm going to do triggering. I clicked on the triggering box, okay? Oops, my chat window got too big. I clicked inside this box. I clicked all pages. Now I'm going to name, before I click save, I'm just going to name my tag. So I'm going to say GA4 configuration, just to give it a name. All tags in Google Tag Manager require some sort of name, otherwise you'll confuse yourself. And then you press save. And then you're almost done. The last step is to publish what you did. Just because you've made the tag does not mean that it's actually saved onto your website. You have to go through the process of clicking publish, also known as submit. So you click submit, and it's going to ask you to give a description to what you just did. So added GA4 configuration tag. Just give it a nice descriptor and then click publish. And it will tell you, saying like no one is watching, you've just published your tag. That's it, okay? If you've never set up GTM before, or if you're kind of lost because this is not your way of doing it, or you don't have access, somebody else does it at your business, whatever your reason is for being stuck on GTM, the GA4 toolbox that I mentioned that you're gonna have access to on the link that I'm providing, I will walk you through how to set up GTM. I promise you, I will help you out. So don't worry about it if you're a little bit lost here. I will give you the step-by-step for your scenario to make sure that you can get GTM working for you, okay? So rest easy, you'll be good. So now if I go back to my workspace inside GTM, I should be able to see, if I go to tags, I should be able to see that there are no workplace changes. It used to say that I had one change that I had made, but now it says 0 because the change that I made was published. So now I don't have any lingering draft changes, okay? So that's all you do. And then when you go to your website, what you can do is, if now I go to my website and I look under GA4 reports, I'm going to switch to GA4 reports just so you can see, this is how I test to see if my tag is working. GA4 has real-time reporting just like GA3 did. And here we go. If I go to reports and I go to real-time, I should be able to see activity on my site under the real-time reports. And that's a way to verify. If I go to my site right now, SEO Sprints, I should be able to trigger the real-time reports showing up here. So that's a quick way to verify that the GA4 tag is working, okay? I'm going to go ahead and delete the tag that I made in GA4, in GTM, because that's the second tag I've made. So I'm going to just check the box, click delete, and delete it. So I don't have two instances of Google Analytics 4 running on my site, okay? So that's how you do it. And that's how simple it is. Again, if you lost me or if I lost you, the information is going to be available in the toolbox. As far as the data, the Google signals, I mentioned you can go to data settings. You can go to data settings, select data collection, and you can click this get started button. And make sure you read Google is actually going to, once you click get started, is going to give you a statement that you should read and get familiar with, because you're going to be collecting people's information about interests and such. So Google wants to make sure that you are aware and that you're making people aware of this inside your privacy policy statements. But turning on Google Signals, this is all you have to do is press this button and then confirm on the next page, and you'll start to track demographic information. Okay. Awesome. All right, so that's what we do so far. That's what I want you to do as soon as possible. Like I said, do it yesterday. Get your GTM tag working, get your Google Analytics 4 account working so that you have data collecting. Once the data is collecting, what I want you to do right after that, and I say I'll give you until next week, is to use GTM to create additional events and goals inside GA4. In other words, your Google Analytics 3 events are not going to carry through. You're going to need to create these events inside GA4. And the good news is creating events inside GA4 is quite straightforward as well. Let me see what your questions are looking like. There's so many steps inside GTM. I know there are lots of steps, but they're pretty easy. Somebody's saying they don't fear GA4 anymore. That's great. Yeah, I want to show you how to set up events in GA4. I just want to be mindful of the time. Let me do this. Let me just give you a quick overview, and then I'll show you the steps if we have a couple of minutes at the end, because it's very easy. And there are two ways you can do it, either directly inside Google Analytics or inside GTM. Both are super easy. Matter of fact, here, let me show you. Let me show you super fast, because I cannot help myself but to teach you how to know what I know. Okay, so inside GTM, again, inside Tag Manager, again, you can set up events in GTM or GA. It does not matter which one you choose. You still go to tags and you still select new. Now, looking at your website, here's my website. Suppose I wanted to measure how many people click this start sprinting button. Let's suppose that's what I want to track. So back in GTM, I know what I want to track. I'm still going to go here. I'm going to say GA4. I'm going to name it first this time. GA4 event start sprinting. Call it something that you'll remember. And under tag configuration, the only difference here is you're clicking this, and instead of clicking GA4 configuration, you're clicking GA4 event. And then you're going to give your event a name. So you're going to say something like, you name it something conventional so that you'll remember, button sprinting or start sprinting, whatever you want to call it. And then you're going to give your event some parameters. Here we go. And let me close this up. So the event is going to be the start sprinting event, and you're going to choose whatever variable you want to track. Is the event based on somebody doing something? Is the event based on somebody getting to a certain URL? You're going to make your selection, whichever is appropriate. For me, it's going to be somebody doing a specific event. And then I'm going to determine what the trigger is. And here you have to actually create a brand new trigger based on what that button is tagged to do on your website. And I don't want to get too complicated. I promise you it's easier than it sounds, but it requires you right-clicking on the button, looking at the code in the button. I know it sounds a little scary, but it's not. But you're looking for a unique name for the button inside how it was coded. And you're going to take that ID, put it inside GTM. So GTM knows how to identify this button separately from other buttons on your website. Again, this will be in the toolbox with screenshots, so you'll be able to do everything step by step. But again, it'll take up about 5 minutes and you'll have your event set up in GTM, no problem, okay? I promise you it's easy. All right, so we'll get that set up and then you'll have GTM events set up. And again, you can do them either in GTM or also in Google Analytics as well. So once you set up your events, in Google Analytics 4, because again, GA3 events do not transfer over, and if they do, they're probably messy. We've all made bad decisions with events in GA3. So if there's anything you take away from this session, I really advise you, do not just carry over the way that you did events in GA3. Rethink how you want to do your events in GA4. GA4 limits the amount of events you can create, and it forces you to really think about paradigms, not paradigms, but syntax you want to use all the time. And so it's going to force us as marketers to always think about how we want to code our buttons and make sure things are always seamlessly measured no matter what. So that's item B. Item C, I'm going to give you 2 weeks for this, is to start reporting using GA4. So whatever you report now, whether it's a marketing report, whether it's a month over month, year over year reports that you're doing today, challenge yourself to start using GA4 as well as GA3 reporting. Ask yourself, how do I pull the same traffic sources report inside GA4? Pull that and ask yourself what's missing. Force yourself to learn GA4 and also follow the GA blog, which I've linked to here, which Google uses to give you updates on what new features it's adding to GA4, how to use GA4, how to find the same reports that you have in GA3 inside GA4. Google has a blog to tell you this. So I advise you within 2 weeks' time to start following it so that as you're creating your reports, you know how to answer your questions that you might be having along the way. That's item C. And item D. Item D is to create a BigQuery project and link it to GA4. Sounds complicated, but I'm telling you, it's a click of a button. And as you're setting up GA4 rather, down here is, right down here where we had data streams and everything, there's a button that says BigQuery links. BigQuery is nothing more than just a warehouse that houses your data. It looks like this. Here's a visual of it. So here's BigQuery for you. Any data stream that you have, any data source that you have, whether it's Google Analytics, which is this icon here, or whether you've got data living in Google Sheets, whether you've got data living in Google Analytics 3, Facebook, anything, you can force all of that information to get dumped inside BigQuery, and Google Analytics 4 gives you BigQuery access for free. And yes, there are some storage limits and there are some querying limits, but the limits are so large that even if you have to pay for them, you're paying just a few dollars, like tens of dollars for most of us, not hundreds, not thousands, even if you were to exceed those storage limits. So when you turn on BigQuery, again, free through GA4, you then dump all your data from GA3 and GA4 inside BigQuery, and then you can visualize it through Data Studio or whatever tool you have, so that if you want to purge data, if your business wants to purge data every 12 months, every 2 months, whatever it is, you still have the clean data living in a data warehouse, which is BigQuery, for you to do any analysis that you may need to do. This is more advanced, but the first step is just to create a BigQuery account and click that button. And then the data gets stored. And then later on, you can start to create reports out of it, but at least get the data to start getting dumped inside BigQuery, because then you can use it later. Okay. So with that, I'm going to just stop and make sure I answer all your questions. Let's talk about your questions in the time that we have, and I'm happy to answer them for you. Let's dive in.
Mary, in fact, I'm going to read it verbatim here because there's a comment here from Jennifer who says, Mary, you are amazing. And you know what? Mary, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Ryan says, Mary has done amazingly to cover all of this in 60 minutes. So, so much. I think there's an awful lot of folks right now who are very, very, very grateful. So thank you. People have been singing your praises throughout. Yeah, and are right now as well. So thank you very much. We have 23 open questions, but I've just been looking through them as the talk was coming to an end there, and quite a lot of them are either quite specific or stuff you've already covered. So the 23 looks more intimidating than it is. So I'll ask this first question, and maybe after that we'll maybe not look at specific platforms, because in fact I feel like HubSpot and Shopify are the two that people are asking about. So Jemima is the most upvoted question that says, what's the best way to integrate GA4 into HubSpot CRM and a WordPress website? It feels quite specific, but then there's also a few questions about Shopify. So is there like a universal sort of truth that exists on these integrations, or is it quite specific based on the platform?
You know what? So GA4 or BigQuery integrates with a lot of platforms. So quite literally, you could Google BigQuery integrations and see a list of all of those integrations. If HubSpot or Shopify are not in the native integrations, guess what? You can use a third-party tool. It's called Supermetrics.
Mhm.
It's called Supermetrics for BigQuery. And it's a tool that costs about $200 a month to use. So you can just buy it for a month and use it for what you need. But it's a middleman that allows you to connect to BigQuery, any data source that's not directly natively integrated.
Great.
All right. So those are the steps to take. First, Google query integration, see if they're native there. And if not, then look at Supermetrics and use that as your middleman.
That's brilliant. We've got Nick in the chat feature saying Supermetrics is brilliant in capital letters. So it sounds
Yes,
like there's been a
I see
godsend.
that, Nick. It is.
I love that. So there was a question that came in really early on from Alicia, but it was the next one that's the most upvoted. Nick is only sending messages to hosts and panelists presently, so not everyone can see this. But Nick says the caps were accidental. Sorry. Anyway, back to the question from Alicia, who says, "What can I do when so many people don't accept the cookies? I can barely do any analysis on stuff on our shop, and since we have a little number of people actually accepting the cookies, so does GA4? You probably covered this, but there was so much. Does GA4 sort of mitigate this issue around cookies?"
Yes, GA4 does. So what GA4 does is it recognizes the cookieless world that we are entering and that we are very much in, and it fills those gaps in. So it doesn't need to collect a cookie. It can still identify that this particular entity, this individual, is the same person that is moving from this device to that device. So without collecting any private information or even without collecting a cookie, it can still fill in the gap and understand that that individual is the same. Obviously, it's obscuring the individual's private information. So this is something GA3 currently cannot do. When somebody says, I do not want my cookie collected, GA3 shuts down.
Right.
GA4, on the other hand, fills in those gaps. It's built to do that.
Wicked. That's very reassuring. Cool. Next question. In fact, I think you've referred to it a few times throughout the presentation, and it's still down the bottom, folks. So be sure to go to go.seosprints.com/TMM, as I suspect this will be the answer to this question. But it is, what are some of the best resources you have used to learn more about analytics and GA4, Mary?
Fabulous question. So yes, inside the toolbox, I'm going to give you the same resources that I use to learn about GA4. One of the best ones is actually Google's blog itself, where they're directly telling you what to do. The other one is I learn by doing. So anything I can't figure out, for example, I'm constantly pulling SEO reports. I need to see this SEO report and this SEO report inside GA3 and GA4. Anything I don't see, I Google it and I look for an answer. How do I find my specific search engines inside GA3 the way I saw them in GA4, or inside GA4 the way I saw them in GA3? And so I'm always learning. And anytime I see a publisher answer my question, I add them to my list of publishers that I should constantly go to and refer to others. So in the toolbox, I'm going to give you the same list of people that I'm listening to and that I'm watching, so that you are also as up to date as I am.
Amazing. I love it. I love the organization there as well, to be as mindful as that. That's really admirable. Good for you. I'm now going through all the questions. I feel like, your gift, if I may, Mary, and it's probably wrong for me to put this upon you, but I just love how you communicate, because you're so clear. And so there've been so many questions here that I can see in the chat feature. And what I'm going to do is make sure we capture them, just in case there's any that we can go back and answer retrospectively. But right now, it does look like quite a lot of them are quite similar questions. So I don't want to be going through the same again and again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that we keep to our hour, if that's okay with you. And we capture these questions, and I'll send them through to you. And if there's anything there, then folks will be able to find you on LinkedIn and potentially you've either got content for weeks, or you can answer those questions directly, if that's okay.
I'd love to. I'd be happy to answer any questions I didn't answer already. Thank you so much for your time. I love your attitudes and your positivity in the chat. And I hope that we connect. I hope you connect with me on the website and that I can send you this toolbox when it's available. And I'm just looking forward to just keeping in touch with all of you and helping you with any other questions that you might have. Thank you so much for having me again. I love being here.
I was saying to Mary before we went live, I think you are now the number one person who has spoken the most at the marketing meetup, which I feel very proud about because you are you. So honestly, thank you so much, Mary, and thank you also to everyone right now who is putting in the chat feature that it was useful. That makes me very, very happy, and I'm sure it does Mary too. Please do say a big thank you to our sponsors. Impression are our featured sponsor today, but we've also got a number of individuals who contribute to the marketing meetup, and I will link every single one of them in the follow-up email. One big ask from me is that you say thank you to those folks behind the marketing meetup. It really, it makes them feel rightfully special, but it means that we can continue doing what we're doing. So they're really, really appreciated as well. So thank you everyone so much for watching. If you've got a big takeaway, please do share it on social media. Thank you once again, Mary, and we will see you again next week, next Tuesday, for the second marketing meetup of season 7.